Wind blows it, that's all. I didn't put anything on your lawn.
Don't you lie to me.
I saw your bag
Please.
split open right there. Hey!
The woman's palm slammed flat against Marcus Cole's chest, shoving him backward into a grocery store shelf that rattled hard enough to send 2 cans of tomato sauce crashing to the floor. "I said get away from my car," she screamed, her face twisted, finger jabbing toward the parking lot through the automatic doors like she was pointing at a crime scene. What happened in the next 45 minutes would become Macon County legend, a story whispered about in break rooms and barbershops and retold at family dinners for decades. But let me back up just enough so you understand how Marcus Cole ended up standing in the canned goods aisle of a Piggly Wiggly on a Tuesday afternoon, getting shoved by a woman he had never met in his life. Marcus was 34 years old, 6'2", built sturdy from years of hauling hay as a teenager and later from the police academy. He was the first black deputy sheriff Macon County had appointed in its 160-year history. And on this particular Tuesday, he was off duty, wearing jeans, a gray pullover hoodie, and sneakers. No badge, no uniform, no duty belt. Just a man buying groceries for his mother because she'd had knee surgery the week before and couldn't drive. He'd parked his personal truck, a navy blue F-150 with a dent in the rear quarter panel, in the 3rd row of the lot. He walked in, grabbed a cart, started filling it. Ground beef, rice, a bag of yellow onions, the usual. He was reaching for a jar of pasta sauce on the top shelf when a voice behind him cut through the store music. "Excuse me." Marcus turned. A woman stood at the end of the aisle. White, mid-50s, blonde hair pulled back tight, oversized sunglasses pushed up on her head. She had a designer handbag on one arm and a phone in her other hand, already raised to chest height, not recording yet, but ready. "I swear this happened. Can I help you?" Marcus said, still holding the jar. "That's my car you parked next to." Marcus blinked. "Okay, you parked too close. I watched you from the entrance. You almost hit my door." He set the jar in his cart and turned his body to face her fully. "Ma'am, I didn't touch your car. I parked in a regular spot." She took 2 steps closer. "I don't believe you. I want you to come outside and move your truck right now." Marcus pushed his cart forward slightly, angling to go around her. "I'm not going to do that. My truck is parked fine. If you have a concern, you can talk to the store manager." That's when she put her hand on his chest. The shove wasn't hard enough to move a man Marcus's size very far, but it was enough to knock him back into the shelf. Enough for cans to fall. Enough for the 4 other shoppers in the aisle to stop and stare. A stock boy halfway down near the cereal froze with a box of Cheerios in each hand. Marcus looked down at the hand still pressing against his hoodie. He didn't grab it, didn't slap it away. His jaw tightened, and he took one controlled step to the right, breaking contact. He kept his hands visible, open palms out, because even off duty, even as a deputy sheriff, Marcus Cole knew exactly what a scene with a white woman screaming at a black man in rural Georgia could become. "Don't touch me again," he said. His voice was flat. No heat, just a boundary drawn with cement. The woman's eyes went wide, not from fear, from disbelief. Like nobody had ever told her no in a public space and she couldn't process the syllable. She pulled her phone up and tapped the screen. Now she was recording. "I'm calling the police," she announced, loud enough for every person in the store to hear. "There's a man in here threatening me. He damaged my car and he just pushed me. Get this." She flipped the script in real time. She went from aggressor to victim in the space of 1 sentence, and she did it with a camera rolling. Marcus took a slow breath through his nose. He reached into his back pocket, pulled out his own phone, and hit record. He didn't say a word. He just pointed his camera at her and let it run, because Marcus Cole had been trained for confrontation, had de-escalated domestic disputes and bar fights and highway stops that went sideways at 2 in the morning, and he knew the most powerful thing he could do right now was document everything and say as little as possible. The woman did not appreciate the counter camera. She stepped back like he'd pulled a weapon. "Don't you record me. I did not give you permission to record me." "We're in a public place, ma'am," Marcus said. "You're recording me. I'm recording you." She sputtered. Actually sputtered. Then she thumbed her phone and dialed 911. Right there in the middle of the pasta aisle, standing between marinara and Alfredo, she called the police on a police officer. Now here's what nobody tells you about small towns. The dispatch system in Macon County had 3 full-time operators. The one working that Tuesday was Linda Marsh, a 20-year veteran of the switchboard who also happened to go to church with Marcus's mother. When the call came in, Linda pulled up the address, recognized the Piggly Wiggly, and dispatched the nearest unit. That unit was Deputy James Hargrove, Marcus's patrol partner. But the woman in the store didn't know any of this. All she knew was she had a black man on camera and the police were on their way, and in her mind the math was simple. The police would arrive, they would see her, they would see him, and the equation would solve itself the way it always had in her experience. She kept the phone up, narrating like she was hosting a true crime podcast in real time. He's just standing there, staring at me. I feel very unsafe. He hit my car and now he's refusing to leave. Marcus slid his cart to the side of the aisle out of the walkway. He leaned against the shelf and crossed his arms. His phone kept recording from his left hand, angled to catch her face and voice. A small crowd was forming at both ends of the aisle. The stock boy had abandoned the Cheerios and retreated to find a manager. The store manager appeared 30 seconds later. Ray Dawkins, a short man with a receding hairline and a clip-on tie that had seen better days. He came around the corner already sweating. "What's going on here?" The woman pointed at Marcus. "This man damaged my vehicle in the parking lot, and now he's following me around the store and threatening me." Marcus uncrossed his arms. "Ray, she approached me. I've been in the canned goods aisle for the last 5 minutes. She came to me, accused me of hitting her car, and then she put her hands on me, pushed me into the shelf." Ray looked at the 2 cans still rolling slowly near the base of the shelf. He looked at the woman. He looked at Marcus, and you could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. He knew Marcus. Marcus shopped here every week. Marcus had helped Ray change a flat tire in this very parking lot 6 months ago. But Ray also had a screaming customer and a gathering crowd and a 911 call already in progress. "Let's just all stay calm until the officers arrive," Ray said, raising both hands. The woman shook her head. "I want him removed from the store immediately." "Ma'am, I can't remove someone who hasn't done anything wrong." Her jaw dropped. "He assaulted me." "That's not what happened," a voice said from behind her. Everyone turned. An older woman with silver hair and a cart full of frozen dinners stood at the mouth of the aisle. She looked about 70, small frame, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. Her name, Marcus would learn later, was Dorothy Price, a retired school teacher who had been watching the entire exchange from 2 aisles over. "I saw the whole thing," Dorothy said, pushing her glasses up. She walked up to him. She pushed him. He didn't touch her. Not once. Believe me, the expression on that woman's face when Dorothy spoke up was something you'd pay money to see. Her mouth opened and closed twice without producing sound, but she recovered fast. She turned back to Ray. "That woman doesn't know what she saw. She wasn't even in this aisle." "I was standing right over there," Dorothy said, pointing to a gap between shelves. "Clear line of sight. And young man, I want you to know I'll tell the police exactly what I saw." Marcus nodded at Dorothy, a small dip of the chin. Gratitude without performance. The next 3 minutes were a masterclass in escalation from one side and restraint from the other. The woman paced the aisle. She called someone else on her phone, someone she called Richard, and told Richard that a man was attacking her in a grocery store and the manager was refusing to help. She described Marcus as large and aggressive and intimidating, all while Marcus stood perfectly still against a shelf of canned goods, his phone recording, his breathing even. Then she said it, the line that would follow her for the rest of her life in Macon County. She turned to Ray, lowered her voice just slightly, and said, "You know, I pay my taxes. My family has been in this county for 4 generations. People like him don't belong in this part of town." The aisle went quiet. Ray's face drained of color. Dorothy set her jaw. The stock boy, who had crept back to watch from behind a display of potato chips, looked at his shoes. Marcus kept his phone steady. He didn't react. His expression didn't change, but his free hand, the one hanging at his side, curled into a fist and then slowly opened again. That was it. That was the only outward sign that her words hit anything inside him. Blue and red lights flickered through the front windows. Deputy James Hargrove's cruiser pulled into the fire lane outside the entrance. Marcus saw the lights reflect off the freezer cases up front and let out a slow breath. Not relief exactly, more like the feeling a chess player gets when the piece he's been waiting for finally reaches the right square. Hargrove walked in through the automatic doors. 6 foot, lean, crew cut, uniform pressed sharp enough to cut paper. He had his thumbs hooked in his vest as he scanned the store. Ray pointed him toward the canned goods aisle, and Hargrove walked over, boots clicking on the linoleum. The woman saw the uniform and transformed. Her shoulders dropped, her chin lifted. She tucked her phone into her purse and pressed her hand to her chest. "Thank God you're here, officer. This man has been harassing me. He damaged my car and he pushed me, and the manager won't do anything about it." Hargrove looked at her. Then he looked at Marcus, and his lips pressed together so tight they nearly disappeared. Because James Hargrove and Marcus Cole had ridden in the same patrol car for 2 years. They'd eaten lunch together 4 days a week. They'd backed each other up on calls that got ugly, and James Hargrove knew exactly who was standing in that aisle. But Hargrove was professional. He didn't break character. He didn't smirk. He didn't tip his hand. He pulled out his notepad. "Ma'am, can you tell me exactly what happened from the beginning?" She launched into it. The car, the parking lot, the imaginary door ding, the way Marcus had allegedly followed her into the store, the threat she'd felt, the push she claimed he'd given her. She talked for 2 solid minutes, painting a picture of a dangerous man cornering a defenseless woman, and she did it with the confidence of someone who had never once had her version of events questioned. Hargrove wrote in his notepad. He nodded at appropriate intervals. Then he turned to Marcus. "Sir, do you have anything to add?" Marcus held up his phone. "I have the whole thing on video. From the moment she approached me." Hargrove reached for the phone. Marcus tapped play and handed it over. Hargrove watched the video, every second of it. The approach, the accusation, the shove, the cans falling, Marcus stepping away, the woman calling 911, Dorothy's statement, and then the line. That line, the one about people like him not belonging. Hargrove's expression didn't change while he watched. But when the video ended, he looked up at Marcus and gave a single, almost invisible nod. He turned to the woman. "Ma'am, I need to see your ID. Now this is where it gets good. Pay attention." The woman's expression shifted. For the first time, something flickered behind her confidence. "Why do you need my ID? I'm the one who called you. He's the one you should be questioning." Hargrove kept his hand extended. "Ma'am, I need to identify everyone involved in an incident. Your ID, please." She fumbled in her purse and produced a driver's license. Hargrove copied the information into his notepad. Her name was Patricia Langford. She lived in a subdivision on the east side of town, the new development with the stone entrance and the homeowners association that sent letters about mailbox colors. "Now," Hargrove said, tucking his pen behind his ear, "I've reviewed the video evidence provided by the other party. The video shows you initiating physical contact by pushing him into a shelf. It also shows that at no point did he touch you or threaten you. I have an independent witness who confirms this account." Dorothy raised her hand slightly from the end of the aisle. Patricia Langford's face went through 4 stages in about 2 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, fury, and then something she probably hadn't felt in a very long time in a situation involving a black man and a white woman and a police officer. Fear. That's not what happened. The video doesn't show everything. He was standing too close to my car. He was being aggressive in the parking lot. Here's the thing. Hargrove had already made up his mind. He put his notepad away and straightened his posture. "Ma'am, based on the evidence, you committed simple battery when you pushed this man. You also filed a false police report by telling dispatch he threatened and assaulted you, which is a misdemeanor in the state of Georgia. I can arrest you right now, or I can cite you and let you appear in court. Your choice." The blood drained from Patricia Langford's face so fast you'd think someone pulled a plug. Her mouth worked, but nothing came out. She looked at Hargrove, then at Marcus, then back at Hargrove, searching for the angle, the escape hatch, the moment where the system would correct itself and return to the natural order she had always known. It didn't come. And then Marcus spoke. Not loud, not angry, just 4 words that landed with the weight of a freight train. "I'm also a deputy." He reached into his back pocket with his free hand and produced his badge wallet. Flipped it open. The gold Macon County Deputy Sheriff's badge caught the fluorescent light and threw a reflection across Patricia Langford's face. He held it there for 3 full seconds, then closed it and slid it back into his pocket. "Listen to me. The silence in that aisle was a physical thing. You could have heard a dust particle land on the floor. Every person watching, Ray, Dorothy, the stock boy, 2 other shoppers who had crept closer, Hargrove, they all stood frozen. Because the entire narrative Patricia Langford had built, the one about a dangerous stranger, about someone who didn't belong, about the reliable math of who gets believed and who gets blamed, every single piece of it just collapsed, not slowly, all at once. The way a house of cards doesn't lean or tilt, it just stops existing. Patricia Langford took a step backward. Her heel caught the edge of a floor display, and she stumbled, catching herself on the shelf. Her purse slid off her arm and hit the floor. She didn't pick it up. She just stared at the spot where the badge had been, like she could still see it. "You," she said. "You're, She couldn't finish the sentence. Not because she didn't have the words, because every possible ending to that sentence would have confirmed exactly what she was, exactly what Dorothy and Hargrove and Marcus and everyone in that aisle already knew. Hargrove stepped forward. "Ma'am, do you want me to cite you, or do you want to be arrested? I need an answer. I want to speak to your supervisor." "My supervisor is Sheriff Tom Brantley. You can call the office and request a meeting. But that doesn't change what's happening right now. Citation or arrest." Patricia's hand shook as she bent down and picked up her purse. "Citation," she said, barely audible. Hargrove wrote the citation on the hood of his cruiser outside. 2 charges, simple battery and filing a false police report. Patricia signed without reading, got into her white Lexus SUV, and sat behind the wheel for a full minute before pulling out of the lot. Her car wasn't dinged, not a scratch on it. Marcus's truck was parked a full space away with an empty spot between them. But the story doesn't end there, not even close. Now you might think Marcus went home, told his mother about it, had a laugh, moved on. And he did tell his mother. But his mother didn't laugh. She sat on her couch with her knee propped up on pillows, and she grabbed Marcus's hand and held it. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "Baby, I need you to promise me you'll always have that badge on you. Always." And something crossed Marcus's face that Hargrove and Dorothy and Ray hadn't seen in the store. His eyes got wet. Just for a second, just a flash. Because Marcus Cole, the man who stood against a shelf while a stranger tried to weaponize every assumption about his skin, the deputy who kept his composure so perfectly you'd think he was carved from stone, that man knew something his badge couldn't fix. The badge had protected him today, but it shouldn't have been required. He blinked, squeezed his mother's hand, and said, "I promise." That was Tuesday. By Wednesday morning, Marcus's video was on the internet. He hadn't posted it. Dorothy Price had told her granddaughter, who worked at the local newspaper, and the granddaughter had called Marcus for comment. Marcus gave her a brief statement. The paper ran the story with a link to the video. By noon on Wednesday, the video had 400,000 views. By Thursday, 2 million. The comment section became a battlefield, the way these things always do. But the video was so clear, so unambiguous, that even the people who usually found ways to defend the Patricias of the world had trouble with this one. She initiated contact. She lied to 911. She made a statement about people like him that was caught on crystal clear audio. And then the man she targeted turned out to be a sworn law enforcement officer. Now listen to me carefully, because this next part matters. Patricia Langford hired an attorney. The attorney released a statement saying Patricia had felt genuinely threatened and that the situation was a misunderstanding blown out of proportion by social media. The statement did not include an apology. It did not acknowledge the battery or the false report. It did not mention the comment about people like him. Sheriff Tom Brantley held a press conference on Friday. He stood behind a podium at the county courthouse with Marcus and Hargrove on either side of him. Brantley was 61, had been sheriff for 14 years, and had endorsed Marcus's hiring personally over the objections of 3 county commissioners who had suddenly developed concerns about qualifications that they'd never raised for any previous candidate. Deputy Cole conducted himself with professionalism and restraint that I wish every officer could demonstrate, Brantley said. The charges against Miss Langford will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and I want to be clear about something. Marcus Cole is not just a deputy. He is one of the finest peace officers I have ever worked with. Any citizen of this county should be grateful he wears the badge. Marcus stood there with his hands clasped behind his back. He didn't add anything. He didn't need to. But here's what nobody expected. What happened next is the part that turns a news story into a legend. Following Monday, Marcus showed up for his regular shift. He put on his uniform, strapped on his belt, got in his cruiser, and drove his patrol route. About 4 hours in, he got a call. Domestic disturbance on Millstone Road, east side of town. The new subdivision. The one with the stone entrance and the HOA. He pulled up to the address, and his stomach dropped. It was Patricia Langford's house. I know. You can't write this stuff. He keyed his radio. Dispatch, confirm address on Millstone Road. Linda Marsh's voice came back. Confirmed. Caller is a female reporting her husband is destroying property inside the home, and she's locked herself in a bedroom. Marcus sat in his cruiser for exactly 5 seconds. He could have called for another unit. He could have requested a different deputy. Nobody would have blamed him. But 5 seconds was all it took. He opened the door, stepped out, adjusted his vest, and walked up the front path. He knocked. Macon County Sheriff's Department. The door flew open. A man Marcus had never seen before stood in the frame. Big guy. 6'3", heavy through the shoulders, red face, glassy eyes, beer on his breath. This was Richard, the one Patricia had called from the store. Richard looked at Marcus's badge, then at Marcus's face. His lip curled. "They sent you?" Marcus kept his hand near his radio. "Sir, I received a report of a disturbance. Is everyone in the house safe?" Richard swayed. "My wife's being dramatic. Everything's fine. You can go." From somewhere upstairs, a muffled voice. "Help me, please." Marcus stepped forward. Richard's hand came up to the doorframe, blocking the entrance. The two men were nose to nose now. Richard outweighed Marcus by 30 pounds, but Marcus had training, a badge, a radio, and the law behind him. And he had something else too. Trust me on this. He had the complete and absolute certainty that he was going to walk through that door no matter what Richard Langford decided to do about it. "Sir, step aside. Now." Richard didn't move. His hand gripped the doorframe. His jaw worked like he was chewing on something bitter. He looked at Marcus's name tag, then back up at his face, and some kind of recognition flashed. "You're the one from the video. The grocery store. Step aside, sir. I will not ask again." And Richard Langford did something that surprised everyone, including himself. He stepped aside. Marcus moved through the house quickly, clearing rooms the way he'd been trained. Living room, overturned coffee table, broken lamp on the floor. Kitchen, cabinet door hanging off its hinges. Stairs, nothing blocking the path. He climbed, called out, "Ma'am, this is Deputy Cole. Where are you?" "The bedroom, end of the hall." He reached the door. It was locked from inside. "Ma'am, I need you to unlock the door." The lock clicked. The door opened 3 inches, and through that gap, Marcus saw Patricia Langford's face. Her left eye was swelling shut. Her lip was split. There were red marks on her neck in the shape of fingers. She saw his face, and her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "It's you," she whispered. Marcus pushed the door open gently. He stepped into the room. He checked the closet, checked the bathroom, confirmed no one else was present. Then he turned to Patricia Langford, the woman who had shoved him in a grocery store, who had called the police on him, who had said he didn't belong. And for a moment, neither of them said anything. The moment hung in the air between them, loaded with history that was 7 days old and 400 years old at the same time. Then Marcus unclipped his radio. "Dispatch, I need EMS to the Millstone Road address. Female victim, visible injuries, and send a second unit for the husband." He looked at Patricia. "Ma'am, are you injured anywhere else?" She shook her head slowly, then stopped. "My ribs. He kicked me." Marcus pulled the quilt off the bed and draped it around her shoulders. "EMS is on the way. I'm going to stay with you until they arrive. You're safe now." Her eyes filled. She stared at him. The man she had called a threat. The man she had told didn't belong. The man who, when nobody else was coming, drove to her house and walked through her door and climbed her stairs and stood between her and the person who was actually hurting her. "Why?" she said. Marcus's answer was immediate. No hesitation, no calculation. "Because it's my job." That was it. 3 words. And they carried everything. Every time someone like her had looked at someone like him and seen danger instead of protection. Every false report, every assumption, every moment a badge wasn't enough, and every moment when it was. 3 words that said, "I will protect you not because of who you are, but because of who I am." She broke. Not loud, not theatrical. She just put her face in her hands and cried the kind of cry that comes from somewhere deeper than the bruises. Marcus stood by the door, facing the hallway, watching the stairs, protecting her even while she cried for reasons she was only beginning to understand. Now hold on. If this story hit you somewhere, if it made you think about the people who show up for others even when they have every reason not to, take 2 seconds and hit that subscribe button and the bell, because this channel finds these stories, the ones that remind you what strength actually looks like, and brings them right to you. 2 more units arrived within 6 minutes. Richard Langford was arrested on charges of aggravated battery and domestic violence. He did not resist arrest, possibly because there were now 3 deputies in his living room and the math didn't work in his favor. He was taken to county lockup. Bail was set at $50,000. Patricia Langford was transported to the county hospital. Bruised ribs, facial contusions, ligature marks on her throat. She was treated and released into the care of her sister, who drove down from Atlanta. The following week, the battery and false report charges against Patricia went to court as scheduled. She appeared with her attorney, left eye still yellowed from the bruising. She entered a guilty plea on both counts. The judge sentenced her to community service, 200 hours at the county legal aid clinic, and mandatory completion of a bias awareness program. He also fined her $1,500. After the sentencing, Patricia's attorney approached Marcus in the courthouse hallway. He said his client wanted to speak with him. Marcus agreed. She stood in an empty conference room, her purse clutched against her body with both arms, and she looked smaller than she had in the Piggly Wiggly. Not physically. Something else. Something had been stripped away. The armor of certainty she'd worn in the grocery store. The absolute conviction that the world sorted people into categories and she was in the right one. That was gone. And without it, she was just a woman standing in a conference room with bruised ribs and a guilty verdict, and the beginning of a question she might spend the rest of her life trying to answer. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Not because my lawyer told me to, because of what you did at my house." Marcus stood with his hands in his pockets. He listened. "I have spent my whole life believing certain things about certain people. And when you showed up at my door, I expected you to walk away, or to be rough, or to not care, because that's what I told myself people like." She stopped, closed her eyes. "I can't even say it anymore without hearing how ugly it sounds." Marcus took a breath. "Miss Langford, I appreciate you saying that. I hope you mean it." "I do." He nodded. Then he turned toward the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. "My mother taught me something when I was young," he said. "She told me the people who test you the hardest are the ones who need you the most. I didn't understand it then. I think I do now." He walked out of the conference room and down the courthouse steps into the sun. 3 months later, the county commission held its annual budget meeting. Sheriff Brantley stood before the commissioners and requested funding for 2 additional deputy positions. He said he wanted to expand community outreach in underserved areas. He wanted officers who looked like the communities they served. He named Marcus Cole as the lead of the new program. The 3 commissioners who had once questioned Marcus's qualifications voted unanimously in favor. Marcus Cole went on to serve Macon County for another 22 years. He trained 47 new deputies. He created a ride-along program for local high school students that became a model for 6 surrounding counties. He never ran for sheriff, though Brantley asked him twice. He said he preferred the work to the title. Dorothy Price, the retired teacher who spoke up in the Piggly Wiggly, received a citizen's commendation from the sheriff's department. She hung it on her living room wall next to her teaching certificates. When people asked her about it, she said the same thing every time. "I didn't do anything special. I told the truth. That shouldn't be special." The video stayed on the internet. It still plays. Last count, 11 million views. It's been used in law enforcement training programs in 3 states. Marcus has never watched it all the way through. Says he doesn't need to. He was there. And in Macon County, Georgia, in the Piggly Wiggly on Route 19, there's an aisle where the canned tomato sauce sits on a shelf that still has a slight dent in the metal bracket. The stock boy who was there that day, now 26 and managing the store, sometimes points it out to new employees. Not every time. Just when the moment feels right. When someone needs to hear about the day a man stood still in the face of everything that should have moved him, held up his phone, held his ground, and then held up his badge. And then, when the same woman who had tried to destroy him needed someone to stand between her and real danger, he showed up. Not because she deserved it, not because she'd earned it, because that's who Marcus Cole was. Because the badge meant something to him that went deeper than authority. It meant responsibility. And responsibility doesn't get to pick its beneficiaries. That's the legend of Marcus Cole. A man who answered hatred with duty and cruelty with protection, and who proved, in a canned goods aisle and then again in a locked bedroom, that the measure of a person isn't how they treat the people who respect them, it's how they treat the people who don't. And if that isn't the definition of strength, I don't know what is.